What's been the most surprising thing about running the business as a CEO that you weren't expecting?
We're in a space that it feels difficult to differentiate yourself, and we aspire to be very values oriented. But at the end of the day, a lot of our customers, they just need their grass cut or they want their parking lot plowed. Why we do what we do really matters to us, and I think trying to convey that message to our customers is probably a little bit harder than maybe I thought it was going to be. But I think it's a worthy challenge, and we'll keep fighting that battle because I think we aspire to be different, and we don't want to be just like everybody else.
All right, so we are here at the Ramblin' Jackson Video Studio in Lyons, Colorado. We've got Eddy Zakes, CEO of Earth Development from Green Bay, Wisconsin. Eddy, you're here for your second video shoot.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming to Colorado.
Of course, any opportunity, I'll make a trip out here, right?
Yeah.
So,
and I'm coming to you. I'm coming to Green Bay in July.
That's right. We're going to shoot some more videos.
We're going to shoot even more videos, so I'm looking forward to that. Eddy, for folks who haven't seen your prior episode on Landscaper's Guide, who may not know you, tell us a little bit about yourself and Earth Development.
Yeah, Earth Development is based in Green Bay, Wisconsin. We provide commercial snow and ice management and landscape maintenance services to properties across the upper Midwest. So right now we work in about 15 states. And my journey to this is a little bit different. I didn't grow up in the business. I didn't grow up even in the landscape world. But I acquired the company about 4 years ago and have been running the company and leading it since. And it's been a wild learning path, talk about drinking from a fire hydrant or whatever. But at the same time, I've really come to love and appreciate the people in this industry and the work that we do. And I get a lot of joy and fulfillment from it.
What's been the most surprising thing about running the business as a CEO that you weren't expecting?
I think running Earth Development has been really, really rewarding. Getting to work through the people that we have and watch them grow and develop, and to professionalize the company from a small business to scale it up, I think has been harder than I thought it would be. I think we're in a space that it feels difficult to differentiate yourself, and we aspire to be very values oriented. But at the end of the day, a lot of our customers, they just need their grass cut or they want their parking lot plowed, and why we do what we do really matters to us. And I think trying to convey that message to our customers is probably a little bit harder than maybe I thought it was going to be. But I think it's a worthy challenge, and we'll keep fighting that battle because I think we aspire to be different, and we don't want to be just like everybody else.
Yeah. So how are some of the ways that you lead from values, and you hire, recruit, retain, let people go based on values? How are you helping your team communicate those things to customers? Because you're not really meeting with clients necessarily all the time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we'll get involved with some clients, when it's appropriate. But at the size that we are, there's a expectation of being able to empower team members to do that work. We were talking last night at dinner about how you're preparing video series for your team members to learn the expectations of account management or Green Industry 101 or whatever. And I think being able to scale the business, it's not just what you put on a wall that is your values, it's what you live and breathe. And so we reinforce that in every way that we can. So one of the things that we have is we have a 5-star service partner program. So we work with a good number of service partners throughout the geography that we serve, and how we assess their performance. It's not just being on time or following the scope of work, but it's tied back to the idea that we want to be reliable, responsive, and partnering. And so what does it mean for a service partner to be reliable, and making sure that that language of our values is pervasive in even the way that we measure and assess performance of our team members, of our customers as well. We expect our customers to be reliable, responsive, and partnering with us, and we expect our service partners to be that as well.
That's cool. Yeah, I like that. Reliable,
responsive,
and partnering. So what does partnering mean?
Yeah, for us, partnering is about a long-term orientation, and it's about the symmetry in the relationship. So you can't have a one-sided partnership. A partnership is both sides or both parties being equally delighted. And so when we think about a customer being a good partner, it's about the perception of the value that's being exchanged. So we have core values, but also the financial, the monetary value of the relationship or the peace of mind or whatever. And so they're agreeing that I want to pay a certain amount of money for these services. And if we charge too much money, even if they agreed to that, they signed the contract, we're doing exactly what they expected us to do. When we go there, every time we show up, they're going to be like, oh, here comes Jack again. Yes, he's following the scope of work perfectly, but it hurts. Every time I see him pull into the driveway, I'm not happy with the cost that this is, and vice versa. If we charge too little, even if we agreed that that was the fair price and we signed it and you're paying us on time and everything that you're supposed to be doing, we're regretting that relationship as well. And I'm sure this is the same for Ramblin' Jackson clients, is that like we sign a contract, we have a relationship, we have a scope of work, and that we're getting that perceived scope in a way that is a fair exchange of value. That's what a partnership is to us, and it's not necessarily about maximizing the return of profit from that customer in 1 year. We hope to be customers with, or have them be our customer for 25 years or 30 years. We have a few customers who have been with us for pushing 25 years now, and that I think is the very definition of partnership. They must be delighted with what we're doing.
I'm curious for those people, because that was through you becoming the CEO. Right, so they were there because the company's been around 25 years.
Correct. This year we're celebrating 25 years.
You've been here 4. Mm-hmm. So, what about the business have you maintained that you think? So I'm sure there's things that you've changed, but there's certain things that like attracted you to the business that you're continuing to do that would keep that client, right?
I think it starts with certainly just the first word of that: reliable, responsive, and partnering. Reliable is like your car starting. If your car starts every single time, then your car is reliable. If your car fails to start one time, every time you go back out to your car and you turn it on, you're going to be wondering, is today the time that it's not going to start again? You have that seed of doubt in your mind. And so for us to be reliable means that we show up and do exactly what we're expected to do every single day. And if we're doing that and we're doing it properly, I think customers, the bar in our industry, unfortunately, is fairly low in terms of service partners or service providers being, it's starting to rain for those of you who are watching.
We're getting a little
Colorado drizzle
just
here.
A little, if this is it, we'll be fine.
We'll push through. Starts pouring on us. So I think the service delivery aspect was something that was already there, and that emphasis on operational excellence and delivering to our customers the experience that they signed up for, I think that was already there, and we've fought very hard to maintain that. I think things that we've done better and differently is improve the quality of our communication with our clients, tracking the performance of our service partners and the service delivery component, and documenting that really, really thoroughly is something that is far improved from when I arrived at the company. Not that it was a complete zero before, but it just has become more and more important to us to be able to demonstrate to our customers the work that we're doing and showing them the value. And then also the risk management aspects of that are really important to be able to show a client for their sake how we're minimizing their risks in the wintertime, and that being important for them if they ever were to face a slip and fall claim or something like that. We have well documented on their behalf how they're making sure that their parking lots and their properties are safe and attractive.
So one of the things, we got to eat dinner last night with Robert. That was fun. I learned that
Robert, the sales guy.
Robert Felton from he's our director of client strategy.
There you go.
And that includes sales, but it includes strategy. We're sitting next to the fire here. We got a little gust of wind that made it kind of warm here.
Got my eyebrows.
So I'll turn this down just a little bit. There we go. And so one of the things we learned, speaking of heat, was that you rode a bicycle through the Valley of Death.
Yes.
Is that a real place? Is it?
It certainly was to me.
Yes.
It certainly was to me.
So tell us about this experience. So you were like 16.
Yeah.
And
so I raced bicycles as a kid and raced fairly competitively, but I was all about adventures and big adventures. And when I was about 16 years old, I and another 16-year-old friend rode my bike from Marble, Colorado, back to Phoenix. I grew up in Phoenix, and this is before cell phones, before ubiquitous, internet, all the rest of these things. So my parents very trusting.
We brought a paper map for this.
We brought our prop, and so Marble, Colorado is just right here. So it's on the kind of western half of the state.
Yeah.
And I rode from there down to Phoenix. I want to say maybe 750, 800 miles over the course.
And so which highway did you take?
I took that 133.
133.
Down towards Delta and Montrose.
So then you cut over to Montrose.
I think I went to Delta first. and then Delta down to Montrose. So Delta is here.
I see. So you came
and
over
on
here.
that 133, my kids love this story. Basically, I want
to
keep this open.
While you
so we are, my friend and I, we leave Marble, Colorado early in the morning, and we're loaded up with panniers and tent and sleeping bags and everything else for this multi-day trip back. And
yeah, like 9 days.
Yeah,
right?
long time. And we're going, and the sun comes up, and you think of Colorado as high mountains, but this is a very arid area, and the distances between the towns is fairly far. And we start to run out of energy, and there's nowhere to refill a water bottle. And we're riding, and my kids, every single time we eat cherries, they say, "Dad, remember that one time you were riding your bike in Colorado through the Valley of Death?"
Right.
And because as we're riding, the heat starts to bake us. It also started to bake the roadkill. There's a strong prevailing wind out of the west, and it's blowing the scent of every dead animal along that road towards us. We're riding through the scent of hell itself, and we're starting to wither under the blazing hot sun. And in the distance, like a mirage, our water bottles are empty. We have no more food to eat. We've eaten everything that we were carrying. Comes just this shining hope. And it turns out not to be a mirage, but it's real, and it's a fruit stand on the side of the road. Not a manned one, there's nobody occupying it. It just has a little cash box. And the only thing that it was selling that day was cherries. And each of us bought 2 pounds of cherries and sat on the side of the road and ate 2 pounds of cherries. And so every single time I eat cherries now, my kids are like, "Hey, remember that one time?" I have a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 6-year-old. And now they retell the story about the time that Dad rode through the Valley of Death and ate cherries to survive. And so, yes, that was last night's dinner where this story gets unveiled.
There's more to the story, though, because you were 16 and you planned. Tell us, where did you stay
Yeah,
along
I mean,
the way?
So
you had tents, and then you also stayed.
Tents, but also we would stay with just people that lived in these communities. So we'd often call a church in a community because they're hospitable was the idea, and we would call and we'd say, "Hey, can we either stay at your church or with a member of your church in these small towns?" So I mean, these are towns of 1,000 people, and often a parsonage or another church building was right next door. We'd sleep downstairs in the basement of the church or whatever, or often with a member of the church, and we would show up and they would be like, "Yes, absolutely, you can stay with so-and-so, and we'll be there on the 25th of the month or whatever." And we show up, and we would just arrive at, say, 4:00 in the afternoon and eat dinner with the family, do whatever they were doing for the night, go to sleep in their basement or on their couch or on their living room floor, and then the next morning eat breakfast with them and go on. And in that process, I stayed with a lumberjack. I stayed with in the Pagosa Springs area. I stayed with a professional
lumberjack.
I stayed with a professional archery hunter. I stayed at a convent in New Mexico with a bunch of nuns, and all of these places. I mean, very formative, very strange, very adventuresome. I can't imagine letting my 16-year-old child do this trip without without a cell phone today. This is absolutely crazy. But it also was it was a progressive step in in my life at that point, and the kind of strange kid and strange childhood that I had.
Well, how did that shape who you are and like what you do now?
So I think the sense of adventure and the sense of responsibility. I don't think my parents would have let any kid do that. I think I was an odd kid with a little bit of obviously a high sense of responsibility and a high sense of trustworthiness, et cetera. And so I think those things hopefully carry over. I think that when we look to hire people, we that background in athletics or in playing a musical instrument where you've had to practice and hone a craft. A lot of times you don't feel like practicing your musical instrument or waking up at 5:00 in the morning to go to football practice or wrestling or pick whatever your sport is. And we find that general sense of discipline and grit and determination that comes from sports, comes from musical instruments, comes from this sort of gritty life experiences. Certainly entrepreneurship can be one of them. Those serve people really, really well within Earth Development.
Well, yeah, the grit thing, what does grit mean to you as an employer?
I think it's a certain level of stick-to-itness. It's, doing the hard thing, even when you don't necessarily want to, or when the payoff might seem distant and not quick. And it often is, there's a level of friction. Grit, the very idea of is like I might be going against the crowd or against the inertia that's already there. We need to do that because the easy way, we talk about we don't do things at Earth Development out of convenience. We do them out of out of conviction. And that sense of conviction and determination is something that I think will separate us in the long term.
Have you found a good way to know when you have or don't have a potential employee who has grit?
Not flawlessly.
Okay, because you know when you don't.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so
and you know when you do, but they need to be here for a while and go through something hard.
Certainly, I think that there are, like I said, certain tells. So, I mean, athletics, musical instruments, I think a certain level of performance. So, I know you have a background in music, and I think, getting rejected and told no over and over as you audition and you try to find your way into a performing arts sort of environment, I think all of those things are maybe small tells that somebody was willing to stick with something for long enough in order to see the benefit. Now, could they have gotten lucky and they weren't that good and they just had a rich uncle who created and opened doors for them? Yeah, that's possible.
Right.
But at least it's maybe an indicator of this grit or determination.
One of the books I mentioned to you last night was the Sales Acceleration Formula by Mark Roberge, and one of the criteria at HubSpot when they were hiring from Mark's book was prior success was the thing that he was looking for.
I think, and it doesn't need to be prior success in even sales. It just is prior success, is that you're the sort of person who finds a way to be successful in whatever you do, and that could be in something really small, or it could be in something really big as well.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so people who have excelled in or prior businesses, like you mentioned, Robert had a jewelry business.
Right.
It was pretty successful.
Yeah.
And so that shows resourcefulness. It shows grit. It shows a lot of things that are part of who he is.
It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be successful. So I think that there are other skills factors that matter a lot. And so, just because Robert was a successful musician or was successful in this or that doesn't mean he's going to be a successful salesperson. He also needs to have the sales aptitude in order to be great at this. And I think we talked last night at dinner about skills assessments. We both are fans of the Objective Management Group sales assessment.
The OMG assessment for
assessment for sales. We're believers in that as a solution as well. But I think we're trying to figure out a way to maybe not de-risk, because I don't, we talk about risk being like a dimmer switch. It's not an on-off switch. So we're trying to figure out how can we make the best choices possible when it comes to hiring somebody, and we still make mistakes. And that's when you go back to your values and say, we have one of our values is being passionate about our people. We care about our people, even if they're ultimately going to leave Earth Development. How are we honoring them in that process? But how are we also giving them a chance to thrive and succeed, and train them so that maybe a skill that they don't have today, they can pick that up. On the other hand, we're moving fast, and so we can't always wait for you to develop a skill. Might need you to have that skill now. And so there's this constant tug of war that I'm sure you're very familiar with as a business owner and leader.
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure. And you there are certain basic skills though, like one skill that I learned the hard way that I needed people to have was typing skills. I had somebody who was really good at the people part of the role, of meeting with clients and coming up with ideas, and then the task part of typing up those notes into our CRM to share with the team, so that way our team can do the work, was taking a very long time. I learned that person was not typing proficient.
So, I mean, gone are the days
I
where... I
assumed that they would be.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is the problem, is that, if you're of a certain age today, technology seems ubiquitous. It's hard for me to imagine not knowing how to type. But also gone are the days where we administer them a typing test. So, I mean, how have you found ways to get around that in terms of to assess somebody's technology aptitude or whatever, or typing aptitude? Because to give them a Mavis Beacon typing test, how do you do this?
Yeah. So one of the skills that I realized that you need to have to be a Rambler is to comprehend Google Drive. Like if you can't, for example, title a Google document and share it with us, then you probably really couldn't hang here, because that's a lot of what we do. So part of the onboard or the interview process is a skills assessment of some kind, where you need to, if it's a person who's client facing, I've shared this story with you. You listen to this recording of a conversation with a client from an unusual town in New York that's difficult to spell, and you need to listen to it and type what they said they wanted, and then share it via Google Docs with XYZ address, email address. And so if you can't share it, you share it with the wrong address, or you don't follow the instructions for doing it, or you aren't resourceful enough to Google the spelling of this unusual town in New York, then we're not going to advance you to the next step.
When you go against those hiring assessments, I'm sure, I mean, I know I've done it. Has there ever been a case where you went against it and you were right to go against it?
No. Usually it's the opposite. When I've like made some sort of exception and it's like, oh man, that was a deal breaker.
Yeah. And it ends up coming back to bite you.
Yeah, it ends up coming back to bite you. So, but there's also, I mean, there's a certain amount of those skills and things and personality assessments, and then there's like, some of it is gut feel.
Yeah.
But I think in the early days of running my company, it was primarily gut feel. It was like, oh, you're cool.
Yeah, I'd like to hang out with you.
You're cool.
Yeah,
I like you.
Yeah.
You know, and you're hired. And then I was like, wait, you can't
do the job?
You can't do the job at all. And it's like, well, I didn't even write a very good job description at all. So yeah, I've learned to do better. We've got just a couple minutes. I wanted to ask, what is the next big adventure you have on your schedule that you're training for? You shared something with me.
Right now, I like extreme endurance things. So whether this was riding my bike for 9 days or whatever, as a 16-year-old, that has persisted. And so this year I thought it'd be a great idea to do an Ironman triathlon. Have I ever done any triathlon before? No. But the idea of swimming a couple of miles, riding your bike over 100 miles, and then running a complete marathon all in under 17 hours seemed like an adequate challenge.
Yeah,
and
that's
so,
adequate.
It seemed like a good one to throw out there. And so I am doing the Wisconsin Ironman in September this year, and my training is well underway. And I swim
what's
and
the
bicycle.
training look like? What's a week look like for you right now? Between you're a dad, you're a husband, you're a CEO, and you're an Ironman.
No, not yet.
Okay, you're an aspiring
Ironman.
So what does that look like in a week? How do you fit all of that in?
A lot of discipline, and it goes back to that idea of grit, determination, discipline, etc. Having a pretty regimented life, and following a plan, whether you really feel like it or not. And so Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I do 2 workouts each day, a running and swimming, or swimming and bicycling, or bicycling and swimming, to make it so that you're just building that endurance and that resilience so that when you get to race day, you have it. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are long days of an individual support. And so, so I often am getting up at about 4:45.
What time do you go to bed? Because you got to sleep to be ready for this.
You do need to sleep. So a lot of times I'm in bed by 9:30, 9:45, 10 o'clock, which isn't necessarily my absolute preference, but it's what I have to do. And I think being able to do that early morning training makes it so that, number one, I think sometimes we save hard things until the end of the day. And at the end of the day, we have a lot of excuses. But early in the morning, there's no meeting to go to. There's no child care issue that you need to deal with, et cetera. And so, doing those hard things first thing in the morning, whether it's in business or in your, sports practice or in whatever, I think a lot of times that works. So I do those first thing in the morning, so it has as little disruption to my family. Most of my family members, all of my family members are still sleeping at 4:45 in the morning. And so a lot of times I'm home from the pool as they're waking up and just starting their day. And so, it fits in pretty well there. And then my wife is incredibly gracious and supportive to let me, pursue these things and be supportive and encouraging as I chase some of my dreams.
Have you found that adding in that extra exercise required you to delegate things in your business, or remove things, or scale things to? Not
necessarily. I mean, I think we have an exceptional team at Earth Development and some great what we call next level leaders in our team, and so that practice of delegation and clear performance expectations is already pretty well set. But I do find that people who are busy and are really well disciplined, adding another thing in actually often helps them become even more disciplined. And so you end up becoming more disciplined in what I eat and making sure that I go to sleep on time. And so instead of becoming exhausted by discipline, you actually build a muscle of discipline, and it helps you in all facets of your life. So for me right now, it requires me to be extremely attentive to what I'm doing at every moment to maximize, because I only have this much time to do it. So if I'm going to be swimming, you better be all in on the swimming. If you're running or bicycling, be all in on those things. But if you're having a one-on-one meeting with one of your team members and you have this defined amount of time to do it, just like your training, you need to be really diligent and focused on getting that done. So I think doing more things often, great great people seem to be able to carry so much weight, and I think a lot of that comes from like the development of that skill of focus and discipline.
Yeah.
I aspire to that. I'm not quite there yet, but it certainly is my
We'll
ambition.
look forward to talking to you in September and seeing how that Ironman went.
Sounds great. Sounds great.
All right. Well, speaking of discipline and doing things, I got to go. I've got an appointment that I've got to go to, and I think you do too.
Absolutely. It's been a privilege.
So,
thanks a lot, Jack.
Eddy, thanks for coming on the Landscaper's Guide. Thanks for coming to Colorado and for working with us.
My privilege. It's been a joy to work with Ramblin' Jackson. Really appreciate you guys too.
Cool, man. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Like today's video and subscribe to our YouTube channel to get upcoming videos to help you grow your snow and landscape company. My name's Jack Jostes, and check out my free resources in the show notes and click the next video to grow your business.